Ken Curtis was a name millions of Americans loved, known for his loyal portrayal of Festus Hagen on Gunsmoke. The crooked hat, the gravelly voice, and the gentle humor made him unforgettable. But behind that familiar face was a man few ever saw, a man who had lived decades in Hollywood and had witnessed its hidden betrayals, quiet rivalries, and the darker side of fame. In his lifetime, Ken Curtis worked alongside countless stars, some kind, some competitive, and some who crossed lines that could not be forgiven. While he kept a warm public persona, privately he carried grudges that lasted years. According to those close to him, in the months before his death, Curtis did something he had never done before. He revealed the names of 5 actors he could not forgive. 5 men whose actions, attitudes, or betrayals left a lasting impression on him. These were people he felt had disrespected him, undercut him, or undermined his career at crucial moments. Some were fellow Western stars, others colleagues he had once called friends. One name, in particular, came as a shock to those who assumed Ken's relationships in Hollywood had been entirely harmonious. For decades, these secrets were kept hidden, known only to Ken and a few insiders. But as his final years approached, he reportedly felt it was time to set the record straight, to reveal what he had carried in silence for so long. Today, for the first time, we look behind the curtain to uncover the 5 actors Ken Curtis could never forgive. The names themselves are a revelation, and the reasons for his resentment paint a picture of a Hollywood that was far less friendly than audiences ever imagined. Ken Curtis's first confession shocked even those closest to him. It was an actor whose name still resonates in Hollywood history. Someone whose charm on screen could hide a storm brewing behind the cameras. Curtis described him as charismatic, talented, but utterly ruthless. Their conflict didn't begin on set. It started at a Hollywood party in the early 1960s, a glamorous gathering where the industry's biggest names clinked glasses and shared laughs. Curtis, known for his easygoing nature, was approached by this actor with what seemed like a friendly smile. But the encounter quickly turned cold. According to Curtis, the actor had made a subtle but cutting remark about his acting abilities, suggesting that Curtis's success on Gunsmoke was more luck than talent. For Curtis, that was more than an insult, it was a challenge. Over the years, their paths crossed repeatedly, from award shows to industry events, and each meeting seemed to deepen the tension. The actor, according to Curtis, would often undermine him in subtle ways, spreading rumors, taking credit for ideas Curtis had suggested, and even subtly criticizing his performances. To producers and directors, the turning point came on the set of a Western film in 1965. Curtis recalled a scene where he and the actor were supposed to perform a complex sequence together. On cue, Curtis followed the choreography, but the actor deliberately broke timing, causing a retake that made Curtis look unprofessional. It wasn't just a minor annoyance, it was a public humiliation. Curtis later confided that in that moment, he realized this was not mere rivalry. It was personal. Despite the repeated conflicts, Curtis remained professional, never responding in kind publicly. But behind closed doors, he vented his frustration to friends and colleagues. He described the actor as a master at manipulating people, always 2 steps ahead, and never afraid to throw someone under the bus if it suited him. What's remarkable, Curtis emphasized, was how this actor maintained a flawless public image. To fans and reporters, he was the epitome of charm and talent, admired by peers and adored by audiences. But Curtis's perspective revealed a starkly different reality. A man willing to sabotage others to maintain his place in Hollywood. Even years later, Curtis admitted that he never fully reconciled with this actor. Though they continued to work in the same industry, their relationship remained a careful dance of civility, masking deep resentment. It was this contrast, the public persona versus private behavior, that Curtis found most frustrating and, ultimately, Intolerable, as Curtis reflected in his final interviews. You can't judge someone by what you see on screen. The truth is often behind the scenes, and sometimes it's ugly. This actor's name may surprise many, but it serves as a stark reminder. In Hollywood, even the brightest stars can cast the darkest shadows. Ken Curtis's second revelation was equally startling, naming an actor who, on the surface, seemed the very definition of sophistication and wit. To most Hollywood insiders, he was charming, polished, and admired for his intellect and quick comebacks. But behind closed doors, Curtis described him as a snake in a tuxedo, a man whose words could wound as sharply as any physical blow. Their tension began on the set of a 1950s television drama, where Curtis had been cast alongside this actor in a pivotal episode. Initially, Curtis tried to be friendly, offering advice and support, as he often did with fellow cast members. But he quickly noticed a pattern. The actor would subtly correct Curtis during rehearsals, often in a condescending tone, making him second-guess his own lines and choices. Curtis recalled one particularly humiliating incident during a live taping. As Curtis delivered a line with his usual calm authority, the actor interjected with an ad-lib, undercutting the delivery and earning laughter from the crew at Curtis's expense. It was like being punched without being touched, Curtis would later say. He was no stranger to criticism, but this felt deliberate, a calculated attempt to embarrass him in front of colleagues. The situation escalated during award season that year. Curtis had been nominated for a television acting award, and while he expected camaraderie, he received none from this actor. Instead, Curtis learned that the man had been quietly lobbying other industry figures, subtly questioning Curtis's talent and suitability for recognition. The effort wasn't overt sabotage, but it was enough to leave Curtis feeling betrayed and isolated. Curtis often described the actor's tactics as psychological warfare. In interviews, he admitted, he had a way of twisting every conversation, turning simple comments into arguments, making you feel like you were the one in the wrong. It's exhausting, and eventually, it drains you. Friends noted that Curtis rarely spoke ill of others, which made these revelations even more shocking. His disdain was not fleeting. It was deep, personal, and enduring. Despite their animosity, Curtis maintained professional interactions when necessary. They appeared together in interviews, photos, and occasional projects, each interaction carefully measured. Yet Curtis confessed that every handshake and smile felt hollow. He could see the underlying manipulation, the calculated charm, and it made him wary of trusting anyone in Hollywood completely. What made this actor particularly unbearable to Curtis was the duality of his persona. To fans, he was the embodiment of charisma and intelligence. To Curtis, he was a constant source of frustration, someone whose cleverness masked a core of selfishness and cruelty. This dissonance between public admiration and private reality became a recurring theme in Curtis's reflections on Hollywood. As he neared the end of his life, Curtis grew candid in interviews. "You don't have to be mean to be remembered," he said. "But some people feel they need to step on everyone else to shine. It's tragic, but that's Hollywood for you." The silver-tongued rival was more than a colleague. He was a reminder that even in the golden age of television, envy and hidden hostility were never far beneath the surface. Ken Curtis's third confession introduced a figure known as much for his explosive temper as for his undeniable talent. Unlike the previous actors on Curtis's list, this one didn't hide his hostility. It was raw, open, and often unpredictable. Curtis described him bluntly as a storm you never know when it will hit. And throughout his career, he learned to navigate the turbulence carefully. Their paths first crossed on a Western film set in the late 1950s. Curtis was already a seasoned actor, respected for his professionalism and calm demeanor, while this actor had recently risen to fame and carried with him the swagger of newfound celebrity. From the outset, Curtis noticed tension. minor disagreements over blocking, subtle jabs during rehearsals, and moments when the actor would openly criticize his performance in front of crew members. Curtis recounted a particularly tense scene where the actor refused to follow the director's instructions. Curtis, ever the professional, adjusted his own performance to accommodate the disruption. But the actor took this as an opportunity to assert dominance, delivering lines with deliberate exaggeration and making Curtis appear clumsy by contrast. It wasn't about the scene, Curtis said later. It was about proving who was in charge. Off camera, the behavior continued. Curtis remembered social gatherings where the actor would target colleagues, whispering disparaging remarks that were almost imperceptible but carefully calculated to sow discord. Curtis realized early on that confrontation was futile. The actor thrived on chaos, and pushing back publicly would only fuel the spectacle. Instead, he relied on patience, keeping meticulous notes on incidents and confiding only in trusted friends. Despite the actor's volatility, Curtis noted that his talent was undeniable. On screen, he could command attention effortlessly, captivating audiences and earning accolades. This juxtaposition, brilliance on camera, volatility off, made the actor all the more infuriating. Curtis described it as watching a wildfire burn. Beautifully, but knowing it could destroy everything in its path, including you if you're nearby. What frustrated Curtis most was the inconsistency. There were moments when the actor could be courteous, even charming, offering a smile or a compliment that felt genuine. But these moments were fleeting, often followed by sudden outbursts or subtle manipulations. Curtis admitted that this unpredictability wore him down over the years, leaving a lasting sense of unease whenever their professional worlds intersected. In private reflections, Curtis acknowledged a broader truth. Hollywood was rife with tempers, rivalries, and fragile egos, but this actor's behavior crossed a line. It wasn't simply about ambition or competitiveness. It was about a disregard for decency and respect, qualities Curtis valued above all else. He often recounted that working with him felt like walking a tightrope over a canyon, never knowing if the next step would be met with applause or a sudden jolt of hostility. By the end of his career, Curtis had learned to maintain a cautious distance. Though he never publicly condemned the actor, his interviews and private musings made his feelings clear. This tempestuous star represented everything Curtis found exhausting and toxic about Hollywood, a reminder that talent alone does not guarantee character, and that the world behind the camera often holds stories far more dramatic than anything scripted for the screen. The fourth actor on Ken Curtis's list was perhaps the most surprising, A.G., performer widely adored by audiences for his charm, wit, and seemingly effortless charisma. To the public, he was the golden boy of Hollywood, someone everyone wanted to work with. But according to Curtis, beneath the affable exterior lay a manipulator of the highest order. Curtis first encountered him during the filming of a high-profile Western in the 1960s. At first glance, the actor seemed friendly, offering smiles and polite conversation. But Curtis soon noticed subtle tactics that left him uneasy, compliments that felt like veiled criticism, guidance that nudged Curtis into uncomfortable positions, and conversations carefully framed to make Curtis question his own instincts. "It was a dance," Curtis said, "and I always felt I was one step behind, no matter how careful I was." The manipulation wasn't always overt. Curtis recalled one scene where a small change in dialogue delivery led to a producer suggesting Curtis's performance could be improved. Behind the scenes, Curtis later discovered that the actor had quietly influenced the producer's opinion, using charm to mask what was effectively sabotage. It wasn't just about taking the spotlight. It was about controlling the narrative and bending the set to his will. Off-camera, the actor's behavior was equally calculated. Curtis described how he would cultivate alliances among crew members, subtly undermining others while maintaining the appearance of camaraderie. He was masterful at creating conflicts that seemed accidental, allowing him to emerge as the problem solver in the eyes of directors and producers. Curtis, who valued honesty and straightforwardness, found this duplicity intolerable. One incident in particular left Curtis simmering with frustration. During a critical shoot, Curtis had meticulously prepared a scene, only to have the actor improvise at the last moment, shifting the focus entirely onto himself. While the performance was applauded, Curtis felt humiliated. In private, he vented to colleagues, calling the actor a wolf in a tuxedo, someone whose ability to charm masked a ruthless streak. Despite this, Curtis acknowledged that the actor's skill was undeniable. On screen, he captivated audiences, drawing praise for timing, emotion, and presence. But Curtis emphasized that talent alone did not excuse betrayal. "I could admire him from a distance," he said, "but I could never trust him." That's the difference between respect and fear. Curtis also reflected on the broader implications of this actor's behavior for Hollywood as a whole. It was a world where perception often mattered more than reality, and where some actors mastered the art of public charm while quietly manipulating those around them. For Curtis, this was exhausting and disillusioning. He had always believed that professionalism, kindness, and honesty should define the craft. But encounters with the charming manipulator proved that the industry often rewarded cunning over integrity. In his final years, Curtis would recount these experiences not with bitterness, but with clarity. He wanted the world to understand that the glamorous facade of Hollywood could hide harsh truths. The charming manipulator was a lesson in vigilance, a reminder that even those with a dazzling smile might harbor intentions far more calculated than the public could imagine. The fifth and final name on Ken Curtis's list was perhaps the most controversial. This was an actor whose legacy is etched into Hollywood history, someone admired, celebrated, and seemingly untouchable. Yet, according to Curtis, the actor's reputation for brilliance concealed a side that few ever saw: manipulative, arrogant, and deeply dismissive of others. Curtis first met him on the set of a 1960s film where both were cast in prominent roles. From the very beginning, Curtis sensed a subtle tension. The actor's confidence bordered on arrogance, and he had a way of dominating conversations, insisting that his ideas were the only valid ones. Curtis, who valued collaboration and respect, found this controlling attitude impossible to ignore. One incident in particular crystallized the animosity. During a crucial scene, Curtis noticed the actor intentionally altering his own cues, forcing Curtis to adjust mid-performance. The result was a scene that, on camera, appeared seamless, but Curtis knew it had been engineered to make him look less competent. "It wasn't about art," Curtis later said. "It was about ego, pure and simple." Beyond the set, the actor's behavior did little to mend Curtis's frustration. He would often monopolize industry gatherings, turning conversations to his accomplishments while subtly undermining colleagues' contributions. Curtis described how, behind polite smiles, the actor could dismiss others' opinions, belittle achievements, and even sway directors and producers with quiet but strategic criticism. It was a style of domination that Curtis found exhausting, if not entirely unfair. What made the actor particularly detestable to Curtis was his untouchable image. Hollywood rewarded his behavior. Fans adored him. The press lionized him, and industry insiders rarely questioned his methods. Curtis, however, saw the truth beneath the surface. A man whose brilliance on screen was matched only by his cruelty behind it. "You can't be loved by everyone and still be a good person," Curtis remarked. "Some people get respect because they're talented, not because they're decent." Curtis also reflected on the broader implications for his own career. Working alongside someone so untouchable required careful navigation. He learned to maintain professionalism while quietly protecting his own reputation and sanity. It was a delicate balance, acknowledging talent while refusing to be intimidated or manipulated. In his final interviews, Curtis's tone was surprisingly measured. He did not wish ill upon the actor, nor did he seek to tarnish a public image. Instead, he wanted to share an honest perspective, offering a rare glimpse into the hidden tensions that defined Hollywood's golden era. The untouchable icon was a reminder that fame, accolades, and charm can coexist with arrogance and cruelty, and that even those we admire most may harbor a side we'll never see on screen. Ultimately, Curtis's confessions painted a portrait of Hollywood few dare to acknowledge. Fame does not guarantee integrity, and talent does not ensure kindness. His list of 5 actors was not just a catalog of grudges, it was a window into the complexities, rivalries, and hidden conflicts that shaped the careers and lives of those who lived under the bright lights. For Ken Curtis, revealing these truths was less about vengeance and more about honesty. A final chapter of clarity before he left the world he knew so intimately.